Hi guys, welcome back aboard our 44-foot hurricane damage DIY catamaran project boat. Although she might look a little bit rough around the edges, our big hunk of fiberglass here is technically ready to go back in the water and motor 900 miles north to North Carolina. The only thing keeping us here in the yard in Florida is waiting for our ride out of here. But we do have some cool little mini projects planned for this week. We want to take our super spiffy new Mantis Dinghy for a ride to go check out the depth where we're planning on splashing the boat to go back in the water because it's going to be a little bit dicey. We also are finally ready to slap a new name here on the transom, and we've got some other fun stuff planned. Here on our trusty ToDo board I have added some new tasks because, well, we found out, for instance, that our new stern light and our brand new anchor light are both broken, so we need to replace those. We also realized that, of course, we need to put the new name for the boat on the transom for the boat to be road legal. The ones I've placed up here are the must-do tasks before we splash. They shouldn't take long, it's just important stuff we need to remember to do. And then down here we have the nice-to-have tasks, which we can get to in case getting out of the yard drags out a little bit. But first up, like I mentioned, we want to check the depth at the causeway, so let's move that one into doing. I am hoping we can do that using this Garmin doohickey. It's essentially a battery-powered GPS and Bluetooth-enabled depth sounder that I'm hoping we can tow after the dinghy while going slowly, and that should allow us to draw a spiffy sonar chart in the Navionics app. This is the Striker Cast, and there are two versions of this, a blue one and a white one. The blue one has GPS, the white one does not, so I don't believe the white one will allow you to create the sonar charts. Seeing as this guy is battery powered, I figured we better toss him in a charger this morning so he's ready for later today. I have plowed through the teeny tiny manual. I've also downloaded the obligatory app, so now we're just waiting for the doohickey to charge. While waiting for that, Ava could get started on the boat name task.
As part of the U.S. Coast Guard requirements before we splash, we have to get the new name on the back of the boat. And I know that a lot of you thought we were going to be naming the boat Hurricane Damage Catamaran DIY Boat Project, but unfortunately that was already taken. So we've had to come up with a new name. Before we add the new name, we have to get rid of the old name. The old name is Carefree, and giving her history, I think her life has been anything but carefree. So it only feels right to set her on a new course. Luckily, Brian left behind this little doohickey for erasing boat names. Mads and I are not sure what it's called. We just call it the motorized eraser, but hopefully it makes the job of erasing the boat name a lot easier.
While Ava was busy with the motorized eraser, removing the old boat name, I replaced our stern light. It was one of these Hella lights here. It's the first issue I've ever had with one of the Hella lights. But I tested the new one and that works. Now for our anchor light. At the top of our 2x4 contraption for our nav lights here, I put a cheap Pug anchor light. I did that because the one I really wanted, which was this tricolor light here for once we step a mast again, is pretty expensive. It's 350 bucks. So I figured we could save a bit of money by using the cheap one, which of course turned out to be broken. And of course I didn't bother actually checking that the light was working before I wired everything, so that's a little bit annoying. The reason I wanted this tricolor light originally was because it's the same setup we have aboard Athena, where we have a tricolor light at the top of the mast that acts as a bit of a backup, where we have an extra green, red and white stern light just in case our normal lights stop working. In the spirit of not making the same mistake twice, let's just test this light real quick. So, okay, red wire is regular red, green, white, and blue is anchor light. Everything is working. I've already checked all of the other lights, so it is just the anchor light we're interested in. That should be this one right here. Yep, that is definitely on. Beautiful. A few days ago, our new Mantis Dinghy arrived. Our friend Tim generously offered to have it shipped to his place of work. The pallet was big and weighed over 500 pounds, so getting it delivered to somewhere with a forklift was a big help. After copious amounts of cutting heat shrink, we got our first glimpse at the Mantis Dinghy, complete with beach wheels. This is a rotor-molded dinghy in HDPE plastic. That means it is super rugged, and I think it looks pretty freaking good. Of course, there are no free lunches in boating, and the flip side of the dinghy being practically indestructible is that it is heavier than a lot of the alternatives. To go along with the new dinghy, we ordered a 20 horsepower 4-stroke Tohatsu outboard with the optional electric start option as requested by the wife unit. With the outboard firmly attached to the transom of the dinghy, we got the super quick assembly of the dinghy out of the way. Basically, it just consists of bolting the 2 seats in place and feeding the wire for the outboard electric start through the strain relief into the neat little battery compartment. Tim had, yet again very graciously, offered to store the dinghy while we're waiting for the catamaran to splash. That meant we could finish getting the outboard ready at Tim's place. The dinghy also has an integrated fuel line that runs between the fuel tank and the outboard. We'll get back to all of the neat little details about this dinghy once we've had a chance to use it for a few weeks. With oil added and outboard ears strapped on, we were ready for the first flight of our new outboard.
Sounds good. I'm not concerned.
The next morning we met Tim at the local boat ramp where we might be launching the catamaran from. As mentioned previously, we did that to check the water depth, but of course also just to get a chance to play with the new dinghy. The 3 intrepid explorers headed out on our short little dinghy adventure. Before getting to the depth sounding portion of the morning, we zoomed around a little bit just to make sure that both the dinghy and the outboard were okay. I'm happy to report both worked really well. I think the Mantis Dinghy is going to be fantastic in North Carolina for some fishing and little creek adventures. With the Garmin doohickey tossed overboard, we started getting our first depth information. While we didn't see any fish, the depth contours being drawn on the chart as we were slowly puttering along was really cool to see. This seems like a useful little doohickey if you're trying to squeeze in somewhere where there might not be good charts. Our little dinghy test and also our depth sounding was a great success, so we can go ahead and close this task. We have plenty of water to get out of there. As long as we don't get stuck on the boat ramp, I think we should be good, but it is still going to be a little bit sketchy, I think. Speaking of going back in the water, the trailer that's going to haul the catamaran to the water is this one right here. It's finally back in the yard, but as you can see, this thing is on there. Nobody crowned me the judge of what makes for a good-looking boat, but I don't think this is it. Apparently this is going to get either cut up or they're going to take the superstructure off it and see if they can reuse the hulls. We don't have an exact date for when we're going to go back in the water, but hopefully they can get that boat off of that trailer. Then the owner of the yard still has to play musical chairs here in the yard to be able to get enough room that we can actually squeeze the catamaran out of here. But yeah, hopefully in the next week or two, hopefully. While we are awaiting our fate, luckily we've got something to keep us entertained. As you saw earlier, the stern light and the anchor light has been replaced and they definitely work, so that's good. Props we'll do as the very last thing. Fridge we'll do the night before, and the last cleaning we'll also do that right before we get splashed. So we're down to the nice to have tasks. This morning, before it got too blistering freaking hot, we managed to get the new lacing strips installed on the tramps. So we now have a foredeck that's complete. That means we can close the tramps task here. Yesterday afternoon, the chain counter for our Windless showed up, so we should be able to finish that today. And we should also be able to at least get started on the port depth transducer. Apparently it is pretty common for catamarans to have 2 depth transducers, one in each hull. For one, it gives you a bit of redundancy, but also catamarans tend to be very wide or very beamy, and yeah, I think it makes sense. Here in the starboard hull, we've already finished the installation of the depth transducer. That one is a through-hull version, meaning it's actually poking out through the hull. The one I've picked up for the port hull is an in-hull version, meaning it's just sitting on the inside of the hull. This is the in-hull transducer in question. The way these work is you have the transducer doohickey itself that gets mounted inside of a little reservoir that gets glued to the hull, and then this reservoir gets filled with this stuff. There is nothing new about this technology. In fact, on my first ever boat, Ep.634, there was something akin to this, which looked like it had been in there since the dawn of time. The downside to this guy is that he is in no way smart like our other Triducer, which will give us depth, speed through the water, and temperature. The old-fashioned guy there will just give us depth. The big upside is there's no hole in the hull. The instructions call for the little reservoir here to be adhered to the hull with silicone, but we're going to be painting the inside of the hull, so I will go a very long way to avoid silicone, because once silicone has been on something, it is hard to get anything else to stick to it. So I reached out to our friends at TotalBoat. I asked them if this product, TotalBoat Seal, would be a good choice for this application. They got back to me and said, maybe. And it is important to remember that Airmar, the manufacturer of the transducer here, is recommending two very specific silicone products. So that's going to be your safest bet, but I will make myself the guinea pig here. So even though this is not the recommended product, I'm going to use it, and then in a couple of years, we'll see if that was a good or a bad idea. The instructions are very detailed, and there are a lot of them. They're mainly focused on lining up the housing so that the top of it is within 5 degrees of horizontal. Apparently, the depth sounder won't work if you're outside of 5 degrees. Luckily, with today's smartphones, everybody has a level in their pocket, so it's super easy to double check. This, of course, only works if the boat is reasonably level. With the little reservoir for the depth transducer in place, we can now go ahead and wait for a little bit. Now, one of the things that the awesome tech from TotalBoat brought up was the fact that maybe Airmar is recommending silicone in part because it cures much faster than the TotalBoat Seal, meaning you can pour in the glycol a lot faster. But yeah, we have plenty of time, so we can easily afford to wait a few days. While we hurry up and wait, we can install this thing, which is the chain counter for our Windless. If we have to wait so long that I end up having to do the 900-mile stretch up to North Carolina on my own, it would be super awesome if I had a way of controlling the Windless from our helm, and also an easy way of seeing how much chain I have out without running up to check the chain. And that is exactly what this doohickey will do. There are a couple of buttons here so we can lower and raise the chain directly from the helm, and it'll also tell us exactly how much chain we have out. This is the quick QNC CHC. That just rolls right off the tongue. The little display is pretty smart. You can connect multiple of them with a CAN network, so you can control your anchor from different helm stations. We only have the one helm station, so we're going to go with the simpler option here. We're also going to ignore the optional physical button up here. We don't really need that. So all we need is a bit of wire. We need green, black, blue, brown, and white. I sadly seem to be missing the white and the green from my little inventory. So yeah, this is what we're going to have to go with. With the wiring just temporarily tossed together with some Waco nuts, we can see that the display has sprung to life. If I haven't messed up the wiring too bad, we should be able to hear the Windless click on. Perfect. Perfect. The way this works is there's a little sensor inside of the Windless that counts the revolutions on the Gypsy. I don't know if this display is configured to the size of Gypsy we have right now. There are the instructions for doing that here, but the way they're outlining it here, they want the chain to be on there. They want you to mark the Gypsy and mark the chain, and then do one full revolution with the Gypsy, and then measure the distance from the point on the Gypsy to the point on the chain. I think that's a really nice and simple way of doing this rather than trying to guesstimate the diameter of the Gypsy. The only problem with that is we don't have the chain aboard the boat yet. It's about 500 pounds of chain, and the easiest way to get it to the boat is if we can clear out enough of the yard that we can back in under the boat and use the Windless to put the chain inside of the boat. But yeah, right now we're kind of blocked in, so we'll have to hold off a little bit on the configuration. The only thing I don't really like about this display so far is the fact that you need to cut a ginormous hole to install it. We're not entirely sure where this is going to end up permanently, so tonight I want to print a little spacer, so all we need to do is to just drill a tiny hole to get this cable through, and then yeah, we can easily patch that later on. We've stashed the much beloved 3D printer here in the aft cabin, and through the magic of CAD and a bit of overnight printing, we now have this lovely little surface mount case doodad for the display. The display is a nice tight fit inside of the case here, and we've got some little holes here on the back for actually securing the display, plus a big hole for the cable. As I've mentioned before, my little case here is just a temporary fix to get us to North Carolina. For that short trip, I think we can just rely on some adhesive to keep the case in place. In case that's not enough, I have added these little tabs here on either side with a hole for a screw, but let's get this thing installed. The way our helm is looking, and just in general the whole boat, I am sure we're going to be turning a lot of heads heading north. Now we can't finish the configuration of the chain counter before we have the chain aboard. I've talked to the owner of the yard. He thinks he can clear a path in here for us sometime next week, so hopefully then we can get the chain aboard and finish the configuration of the chain counter. It's been a couple of days since I adhered that little reservoir for the second depth transducer in place. So let's see if we can pour in some glycol and figure out if we have any leaks. We're gonna get a bunch of stuff spilling out, but it is non-toxic food grade glycol, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When I installed the little reservoir, it looked like we were at about 10 to 12 degrees dead rise. So there's this little adjuster ring, some little numbers here and some little knobbies. So we'll turn that until we're on 12 and secure that with the two included screws. And as the very last step before smushing this thing in place, there's a little O-ring that needs to go on here. Well, 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 Captain Dum-Dum, we meet again. So this is what happens when you don't read the instructions thoroughly enough, because I checked that my little reservoir was level, which that's actually not supposed to be level necessarily. You're just supposed to put it at the right number for the dead rise on the hole where you're installing the thing. The way I've installed the reservoir now means that I can't get the actual transducer to sit level. So yeah, I'm gonna have to order a new reservoir, and then we can try this again in a week or so. Needless to say, that is both a little bit embarrassing because I've recorded all of it, but also rather frustrating because now I have to do some destructive testing on the old reservoir doodad. But at least I guess the flip side or the upside to that is we get to see how good of a bond the TotalBoat seal has to that little reservoir. So yeah, stand by for that. In more positive news, as you might remember from the beginning of this week's video, Ava started putting on the new name, which we didn't mess up. And I think it's safe to say it looks pretty dang spiffy. The owner of the yard is working hard on clearing a path out of the yard for us. As you can see, we're getting closer. We can almost get the tool trailer out. But I hope we'll be able to move soon because there's not really a lot more we can shoot video about aboard the catamaran before we get it to North Carolina. Speaking of shooting video, we're gonna have to go a little bit off script for next week's video because, like I said, there's not a lot more we can do here until the boat gets moved out of the yard. Fortunately, our friend Dave has sold us his old 1997 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck for the value of one doll hair. There are only a few minor issues with the truck, like the fact that right now it doesn't run, it doesn't have brakes or air conditioning. It is 28 years old also, and yeah, I am not a car guy, but it would be really awesome for us to have a work truck in North Carolina so we have an easy way to haul sheet goods and trash to and from the catamaran. So, in next week's video, Captain Dum-Dum is going to go outside of his comfort zone. Very terrifying. But yeah, that is going to be the end of this week's video. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like.
See you.